Now.
Good afternoon. It's December 22nd, 2020. Welcome to this special meeting of the Economic Development Authority of the City of Lynchburg. The meeting is now called to order, and I shall go through the roll call to find out who all we have present today. Mark Strohsnyder is here. John Stone.
Here.
Bill Lovern. Bill
Here.
Lovern. Okay.
Here.
George Ann Sneed? Not yet. Louise Mitchell?
Here.
Andy Mueller?
Here.
Great. First order of business is the CARES Business and Community Support Agreement. We'll turn it over to Ms. Upshur.
So Kent can speak to this, me and Ted. But anyway, we were, the main reason for calling this meeting was that I think, as I mentioned to you all last week in our meeting, the auditing for the CARES Act money had already begun. And in doing that auditing, there needed to be an agreement structured between the city of Lynchburg and the EDA, as you all were the conduit for all of the business and community support CARES Act money or grants. And so that agreement has been created. That agreement was reviewed by Walter. That agreement was reviewed by Ted. He made several edits to the document. And then finally, Donna, brought all the numbers up to date. As you'll, that's on the first page, kind of shores up where we are with all of this right now, but there were late breaking changes yesterday even. But we're just here to ask the authority to consider a recommendation to authorize the chair or the vice chair to sign this agreement.
I think it's important to point out that the activities began August 20th, and with this agreement, it would go through January 14th of 2021. Walter and I worked through this trying to, the main thing I was concerned about was the audit requirement that it had on the authority, and we fixed that so that both the authority and the city will complete the audit together.
Ted, in lieu of discussions or, the passing of the bill yesterday,
Yeah.
any future monies, once this is in place, would this have to be redone, or is this for a specific time limit, or is it in perpetuity until it's done, until it's taken away?
I can't answer that because I really don't know. I haven't really had a chance to look at the 55,000 pages in the what Congress worked out.
But I'm just talking about the agreement between the EDA.
I'm
and the
hoping
city
it.
of
Yeah, I'm
Lynchburg.
hoping it's because actually, any reduction in the grant would have to be redistributed and used as community support from December 31 through March 31. So whether or not that takes care of it, I can't answer, Mark.
Okay.
If I can chime in on that, the intent is your next item is going to have something that uses city funding that we're going to ask you to execute. So the agreement is meant to cover both the CARES funds and then the city funding going forward. And obviously with the changing rules, we'll just have to see how that works out. But today, the money you would be executing after that January 1 date or that December 30th date would be solely city funding that we would be asking you to use.
We shouldn't
Okay,
have to change anything.
Does anyone else have any questions of Ms. Upshur or Mr. Craddock or Mr. White? And would someone like to make a motion?
John Stone will make a motion to authorize the chair to execute the agreement.
Second, Bill Lovern.
John Stone made a motion. Bill Everett has second. We'll go through a roll call to get those yays or nays. Mark Strohsnyder is a yay. John Stone,
Yay.
Bill Lovern,
Yay.
George Ann Sneed is abstention. Louise Mitchell
Yes.
and Andy Mueller.
Yay.
Okay, motion passes. Second item on the agenda is CARES Community Support Grant with Miriam's House. Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Strohsnyder. I am sorry for the whirlwind that this has been, and I hope it doesn't stop you from moving forward and certainly recognizing the great work that you're doing in the community. We have had 2 rule changes to this program in 3 weeks. The one that happened week before last made us believe that we needed to do, for anything that we were doing after December 30th, we needed to make this city money. So the city's long-term recovery committee had always intended, as you know, to make up to $350,000 available to the authority to provide to nonprofits to help the community and specifically the workforce. What the group has authorized is to swap funds so that the city will in effect pay for another CARES eligible expense, since that CARES funding was not available through December 30th. This would become wholly city money. It would not be a federal grant. We would just administer it in the same fashion. And I think most of you know, what we're talking about is a hotel voucher program for persons experiencing homelessness who either have COVID, are testing for COVID, or have been exposed to someone with COVID. Obviously, none of us really were comfortable moving this outside of the deadline, although we absolutely believe it's legal to do so. A number of localities are doing this because of the accelerated pace. We just liked the idea of keeping it all in the program year. But quite frankly, if we do not do this, we feel like we're in danger of impacting our current shelter system. And we ran into this instance with the Salvation Army recently, where we had COVID positive individuals, which shut it down for several days. And if we were to experience that again in January, we would potentially lose 120 beds available for those experiencing homelessness. So the voucher program allows us to isolate those with those symptoms or who are waiting tests from the other population that's experiencing homelessness. So it was either that, or we put people with COVID who are homeless out on the street. And we could not in good conscience recommend that. So this is money that council had already designated that the authority would administer. It was unspent funding. It's $65,000 city money, and it would carry through March. And obviously, if we needed to go beyond that, then we'll just reevaluate that at a future meeting. So that's emergency funding. The decisions yesterday sound like that CARES funding will be available for a whole additional year. But I will tell you, at least in my just initial conversations over the last 24 hours, we're probably pretty comfortable at this point just letting this be city money and staying our course. And we'll deal with CARES funds as CARES funds, and this will be a separate grant. Again, really appreciate your patience working through this. There is definitely a community benefit to it. Happy to answer any questions you have about it.
It gets Andy, and I can certainly sympathize with the things we've had to figure out how to reconcile care plans at this point. Having said that, and certainly it appears that having protecting the homeless in the community is critical. What precautions are taken when these individuals go to hotels to stay temporarily?
I'm sorry. I could not hear the question, Mr. Mueller.
Oh.
I apologize.
There's an issue with the audio, Andy. There we go.
Ah, that's
Can
very
you hear
clear.
me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Again, I'm
Sorry
sorry.
about
Hey, listen, I clearly having these individuals away, not, exposing, and reducing our homeless shelter capacity is a big deal. But just what precautions are taken when they go to a hotel, and are the hotels aware of their circumstance and all that stuff?
Absolutely. No, great question. Believe it or not, we've been administering this hotel voucher program longer than than the authority's been administering the CARES funding. This started back in spring. It's a partnership through the Continuum of Care, which is, of course, our homeless intake agency. Lynchburg Community Action Group has done an incredible job and has administered over $184,000 in funding for this program through the end of the year. Plus, the EDA approved an additional $17,000 at your meeting last week. So it's well established. I will, and certainly the hotelier who's managing this is aware of it and has priced rooms accordingly and has provided for spacing accordingly between those rooms. I will say that there is one notable change from the program as it exists now and what's funded. Since we've gone through $184,000 in a little under 8 months, we're a little concerned about the sustainability of that. So this funding is specifically for those who have COVID or are awaiting tests or need to be isolated due to exposure. The current program also provided for folks who are at risk, over 65, or with a pre-existing condition. And unfortunately, we did not feel like we had sufficient funding to cover that in this cycle. Our hope is that the community groups will continue to work together and see if we can make spaces available in the shelter for those who are at risk and provide some separation there. Really lengthy answer, but really great question. Thanks.
Does anyone have any other questions for Kent? And if not, would someone care to make a motion for the committee?
Sure. John Stone will make a motion to authorize the chair to execute the new performance agreement with Miriam's House.
And I can second that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stone. Mr. Mueller, we'll go through the roll call. Mark Strohsnyder is a yay. John Stone,
Yay.
Bill Lovren,
Yay.
George Ann Sneed, and abstention, Louise Mitchell,
Yes.
and Andy Mueller.
Yes.
Great. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Kent.
Kent. Thank you, Kent. Next item on the agenda is a update of the Shoeless Wonders project. Ms. Upshur?
Yeah, so there was a virtual update last Friday by Sarah Elizabeth Timmons, who is the force behind the Shoeless Wonders. The EDA participated as an investor in that project. John Stone was on the call. Ted told me he was on the call, and Anna and I were on the call. I sent you all via email the recording of that call so that you can listen to it. It's really exciting news. She has funding, and without knowing what the particulars from a COVID perspective are going to be, I think is looking at filming to begin in the fall of 2021. She's also taken with this new investor. She has really gone to great lengths to protect the original investors so they will be, the first ones to receive, their money back or additional, any interest that, or additional funds that will come from the distribution of this. And obviously she has, and John and Anna, you all jump in here if I am not saying all this correctly, but I believe she's got distribution for this and is even in consideration of, as many things are going now, that if it doesn't go to the theater, it would definitely be picked up by one of the streaming services. So she's very positive about it, and she's even grateful that it took this long to go, because she believes that everything to do, I think, as a matter of fact, the film would then actually come out on the 100th anniversary of the Shoeless Wonders. So
Wow.
it's amazing. You know, she mentioned, you know, she's very particular about who would star in the movie, so that her other movies were always had a critical character in there that I think is drawn to the projects because of her passion, but because of the stories that she picked. And one of the names she mentioned was Forrest Whitaker to play in this film. So there were other famous things bannered about. Anna and I were talking about nothing like on a Friday afternoon with the EDA to be hanging around on a Zoom call with David Balducci. So just, you know, another day at the office. But anyway, what she's asking, and I sent you all the email that has the project, the phone call on it. She asked two things. Number one, pushing the dates out will have her to amend the operating agreement that you all have with her. We don't have a copy of that yet. I would ask that you consider approving her request, you know, based on Ted's review of the operating agreement, which in my mind would the only change in the operating agreement would be the dates.
That's right.
Right? So that is all that would be reviewed. The second thing she asked was just that since the investment was already made, that the interest that's been accrued on the investments, if individuals and organizations would consider, you know, contributing the interest that had been earned on the investment back to the project. So those were the two questions. And because I have, you know, had you all meet 2 or 3 times a month, whether you liked it or not, I just thought I would go ahead and bring this forward so that should we get the operating agreement, you know, sometime soon, that Ted could be reviewing that and we could get that executed.
Margette, one more thing I think that was important is that she has continued to have conversations with the Virginia Film Office, and they are still on board with supporting the film. I think she said about $500,000 was the incentive.
Oh, that's
coming from the
fantastic.
Virginia Film Office. So that has been over several fiscal years, right, that they have been able to continue supporting and holding that funding for this project.
Oh, that's great. And Anna, I was right. I mean, I think I jumped on the call because I was coming off another call a little bit later, you and I did. And so was it fall of 2021 or was it?
Correct. Yeah.
Am I right?
The
Okay.
film fall 2021. And John, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, the only thing I would note, and Margette mentioned it, was what I think that Sarah Elizabeth referred to as the gross corridor, which is the new thing she's incorporated to make sure that all of the early investors are the first ones to receive back money. Any investors from now forward will essentially be in second position behind us as early investors. And that could potentially be in the new operating agreement.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right. Thanks, John.
that's only to the good. So it's really, you know, you all took this was an economic development project that I think is a really good one. And I think this is what economic development projects are going to look like in the future. And you all participated in this, not only because it would be very good for our community, but in opportunities come in different packages nowadays. And so it's just really delightful to think that this is all, and you know, you think of the timing of it is to have a film crew in Lynchburg, Virginia for 5 to 6 weeks, you know, after
In the-
the pandemic, it just could be a real shot in the arm for this city.
Plus in the fall, which is a beautiful time for them to be here anyway.
Yep. So that's all I have. If you all have any other questions, I have a team here to help me answer them.
I guess one other thing that I would just take a step further, and Margette mentioned it as well, was that Sarah Elizabeth and some of the other investors had suggested donating or returning back into the project the interest that may have been received while the money's been held in escrow to help with updating, legal costs for updating this type of stuff. They've had our money for a year. If you assume 1% in escrow, that's about $500 that we'd be returning back into the project just to put some dollars and cents onto that request.
But as from I'm sorry, I apologize for not being on the Zoom call, but the classes of shareholder they would remain the same, Class A, Class B, was it Class X? There were three
There was
different.
no discussion of changing any of that.
Does anyone have any other questions for Margette or Anna or John? And would someone like to make a motion to extend our agreement or re-sign upon receipt and review, re-sign and redate an updated performance agreement with Shoeless Wonders?
Sure. John Stone, I'll make that motion to authorize the chair to extend the operating agreement, assuming it's been reviewed by Ted and Margette and Anna and looks okay. Looks okay. That's an official term.
That's amazing,
That's
John.
okay. Yeah. And do we have a second? Anybody?
Sure, I'll second.
I thought you didn't make the motion.
I'm gonna give Louise credit for the second since she was the next one to speak up. Motion's been made and properly seconded that we make the motion to extend the performance agreement for a new year upon receipt and review from legal counsel. We will go through the roll call to get the officials. Mark Strohsnyder is a yay. John Stone,
Yay.
Bill Lovern,
Uh-oh.
Bill,
Austin. Tell him to raise his hand.
Here.
Raise your hand.
okay, Louise,
Yes.
Andy Mueller.
Yeah.
We're going to assume Bill is a yay. If we get him back on the phone and he has a different vote, then we'll change that. Does anyone have any other business or questions, concerns come before the board during this special called December 22nd meeting?
Yep, and Kent's on vacation, so hopefully that means he's left the building. There'll be no more agreements coming this way. Kent, you need to get on that Peloton in the back of you there and just ride on and
I'm trying to
de-stress.
stay off of news and radio at this point.
And de-stress from the next edict we get of what we're supposed to do next.
The next round of funding request. Ted, we have no need for closed session.
No, and did
Yeah.
Bill vote on that last motion?
No, he's coming back in
Well-
right now. Let's give him a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Bill, are you back and can hear us?
I am back. Is it the vote? I've been here. I've been.
We did have a vote, Bill. We're
Okay,
up to
fine,
you.
I'm back. I would abstain. I'm abstaining since I originally voted against the initiative. I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Okay. So duly noted. So we have 4 in favor and 1 abstention. We have no, Bill asked if anybody had any other questions, concerns for the group. We have no business for closed session. Just as a reminder, our next official meeting will be January 21st, 2021. Thank God we're going to be in 2021 at 8:30. And it will be, I assume will be via Zoom. I don't think we'll be back in person by then. And for each of you, thank you again for all you do to serve on this board. And to each of you, please have a great holiday season. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
you.
May I say happy holidays, and ladies, thank you very much for the gift. I really